In this video, I want to share with you 5 mistakes that I believe are the biggest mistakes people make when learning and playing acoustic guitar as a beginner. But I don't claim to have all the answers. Let me know what you think are the biggest mistakes you see and you felt most often in the comments below, and let's learn together, let's share together. But certainly the biggest one that I believe, and these first couple are all about strumming and playing acoustic really, is tensing your arm and tensing your wrist when you're strumming or picking. How many times when you were a beginner, or if you're still a beginner, have you heard something and it maybe is played or sounds a little bit like this? Let me play a beginner classic for you guys. What am I doing there? Well, I'm playing all the right notes in the right order, but I'm playing it with a totally stiff arm and stiff wrist, and it's just hampering progress, a bit like an athlete or a sports person cannot perform anything if they're really tense. You can't run 100 meters faster than anyone if you're tensed up. It's the same thing with guitar. So tension is always the enemy. Do not tense your forearm or your shoulder or anywhere on your body when you're picking or strumming an acoustic guitar, and it will instantly sound better, as it will if you take on point 2, which is not strumming all the strings all the time and not dragging your pick down all the strings and strumming really hard. How many times have you heard Wonderwall sound a bit like this? Let me try and do this. Like, kind of unpleasant, but just because it's loud, it's harsh, and I'm dragging my pick down all the strings, having my pick really deep. These are all things you want to stay away from. With the pick, you want to just catch the strings. You want to keep your motions with strumming or picking as small as possible, not as big as possible. You only need your pick to move, if you're strumming, this far. And you can actually do that with a little bit of a twist of the wrist rather than a big forearm motion, but more on that later. With strumming, for something like the classic, I'm not strumming all the strings at all times. I'm playing every down strum, just hitting the thicker strings only, every up strum, just hitting the thinner strings only, unless it's an accent, which is generally on beats 2 and 4. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Can you see this slight twist of the wrist that's happening? It's not an up and down motion like this, very much a twist. A little bit of that motion will make your strumming sound so much better, but the best way to get your strumming sound better, just ease off it. Don't tense, keep it small and natural, and almost like you're strumming with a feather. Tip 3 is a lot of the same ideas, but for the fretting hand. Did you know if you actually fret a note too hard, you can bend it out of tune? Here's my A note, and if I press that down too hard, you hear it kind of go up. And then straight away, I have a big line on my first finger, which hurts like hell now, because I'm pressing down way harder than I ever would when I'm playing any guitar riff. And it's actually a real skill to be able to press any note on the fretboard just with enough pressure, just to hold that note down and have it be heard, but no more than that. So try this. Let's take the first finger where it is on a C chord. This is actually quite a tricky note to ring out on its own because you have to really curl your finger over, especially if you want string 1 to ring out as well. But play that note and press it down purposely as light as possible, but have your first finger right up against the fret. And we're going to hit it as lightly as possible, and therefore it's going to stop ringing out. Now press it down just enough so that with this good positioning, it rings out, but if you press down any lighter, it would stop, so just a little bit more than that. And that is how much pressure you should press down, and therefore when you go to the wrong side of the fret, the side of the fret that we should never have our fingers to fret 1, for example, it definitely won't ring out with that amount of pressure, but it does here. Very evident in the first or second frets, not as evident higher up, but the same thing still happens. I did this exercise on YouTube years ago. At the 5th fret, same thing still stands. Especially with the dotted frets, you want to be at your side of the dot, right up against the fret wire, not at this side, and that's the same. Never here, always here, but you'll only hear a difference if you're pressing down lightly enough, and if you press down as hard as you usually do for a lot of people, you're actually making the note sharp, tensing up more, and that makes your strumming hand tense up, and you can see what problems we get into. They're my technique things. My last two are more in what you're learning and how we learn. So number 4 is just not learning enough single note riffs. I'm doing loads more of these on my YouTube channel at the moment. The C major scale video, for example, gives you 10 of these if you just looked at the melodies themselves. I released that recently. But when people learn electric guitar, they just tend to have a multitude of single note riffs from Sunshine of Your Love to Seven Nation Army, and there just aren't as many of those for acoustic guitar, but we still need to learn them. And the reason is we can really get into a habit, first of all, of having all our fingers down at once and practicing big open chords for like 20 minutes, half an hour, and you're holding down your fingers, they're like butter, they've got big lines on them, and then you don't want to play guitar tomorrow. Playing single note riffs saves your fingertips because you only have one finger down at a time, therefore the other ones are resting, they're chilling out, they're good. So something like Seven Nation Army, Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, something like Viva La Vida by Coldplay, simple melodies like Happy Birthday, bass lines like That's the Chain by Fleetwood Mac, lead lines like Where Is My Mind by the Pixies, all these teach you so much more than just learning another song that's strummed with chords will ever teach you. Try and learn some that use the major scale as well as everything just being minor pentatonic all the time, like your Sunshine of Your Loves. But you can't go wrong with learning half single note lead lines or riffs or melodies and half strumming songs. Most acoustic guitarists, it's 95% strumming songs. And then you're going to really struggle to get in any embellishments that you want to. You're going to really struggle to get to that level because you've never picked single notes ever. So how are you expecting to do that with strumming? And that brings me on to point 5, which is jumping from song to song, having no clear path forward, not following any specific method or program. Of course, big promotion here for my beginners course and the other courses we have at Andy Guitar. But to be honest, if you're following me on YouTube, you're going to get a lot of good stuff, but it's going to be in amongst every other video on YouTube. So if you are learning from YouTube alone, you need to document what you're learning. Have a folder, a file, use Notion or any other kind of organizing app that's all free, but have some way of logging what you're learning, or let my website do all of that work for you so that we're stamping right at the top of the dashboard exactly what you've just covered and where you should go to next, so you can recap what you've learnt and then crack on with the next song. And finally, I just want to leave you with a final thought, which is perhaps the biggest mistake of all, but it's more a mindset thing, which is overestimating what you might be able to learn in a day or in a week, but vastly underestimating what you can learn and how much skill you can acquire in a month or 6 months or a year. We all want to learn that one thing that's going to transform our playing. But the answer is always, it's never one thing. It's always numerous things that all come at a different time for different people. And if we can just get comfortable with that, but document what you learn, follow up and consolidate, and then move forward towards a certain goal or towards a certain vision you have for yourself. For example, a great goal to have if you haven't covered this yet. Just learn how to play 10 songs, ideally most of them all the way through along to the recording. And a mix of that should be very easy songs, but also some that you've just learnt more recently and that are challenging you a little bit. If all you know is little challenging bits of much longer songs and you've never covered how to play one all the way through, check out this one video here. Highly recommend that as a great starting point. This will always change. I'll add new ones all the time on my YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. And I will see you next time. Leave your thoughts down below of what you think are the biggest mistakes acoustic guitarists make, and I'll see you next time.